Oh, good.
Yay!
Yay.
Hello.
Okay. So before I begin, I'm going to be sending out the request to everybody to tell them, come on. So I'm doing that.
Trying to
Sending
set
to
my
everybody.
camera. There we go.
Sure, no
Got a little
problem.
glare.
Yeah, mine is bad. All right, everyone. Everybody knows I am Dr. Tamu Petra Brown of Innovative Education and Training Solutions and Coaching by Tamu. And we are here live with Uber Educator. She's my educator coach. She doesn't even know that.
Aw.
Uber Educator, Mrs. Carty for Branches of Learning out of Anguilla. And so I'll let her introduce herself and tell us about her and Branches of Learning.
All right. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this live. I am Njeri Richardson Carty. I am the CEO, Creative Education, CEO of Branches of Learning, a creative education consulting business located on the beautiful island of Anguilla. I am also the founder of Big on Learning, a nonprofit organization focused on innovative education solutions for students, teachers, and parents. I've been in education 22 years.
Wow.
I know. When I say that, sometimes I'm like, wow. Yes, I've been in education 22 years, including my pre-service work in early childhood education. But I've always had a passion for learning and education. I have spent most of my time teaching across areas, particularly in the primary areas in terms of special education, ESL, gifted and talented. I have a background in specialized programming in terms of dyslexia and working with students with mild to moderate learning disabilities. I spent most of my time in Texas. So even though I'm from Anguilla, you'll notice the accent. I consider myself a Texguillian. I moved back to Anguilla 8 years ago, and I have really enjoyed my experience in growing Branches of Learning. Branching of Learning actually began in 2006 when I was working in Texas as a teacher. And I was at that time a teacher, leader, instructional coach, and mentor to new teachers in the profession. And there was a high need for persons to diversify their education portfolio. And that's what really pushed me into teacher training and coaching, helping persons become certified in special education, ESL, even getting their general certificate, especially those coming from the business world who wanted to join education. And also at that time, there was a huge shift to those mandated state tests. And in Texas, you know, we do everything different, the big state of Texas, and our children with special needs had to begin taking those state standardized tests. And what I did was work with parents, teachers, families on accommodations and modifications for those testing. So I actually ended up doing both in-home tutoring for some of our homebound students, and then also in-home tutoring for other clients and persons within the Cypress Fairbanks Independent School District community. So that is actually where it began. It was something part-time, and we know the journey of any entrepreneur, we usually are working our regular job, and then and while we're growing and building our business. And that's exactly how I started that many years ago. So it was always a part-time endeavor until in 2012 when I moved to Anguilla. I made the huge move to move back home after getting married in 2010 and having our first daughter. I married my childhood sweetheart, and that's what brought me home. And so after, you know, making the decision, of course, 2010, you know, wasn't the greatest of times economically to make a decision to leave and walk away from the path and career that I had. But for our family, we felt it was best. And always having that dream deep in my heart, I knew I wanted to be at home and teach at home. It was always a dream. I thought, I'm going to do that when I retire. And, I'd already spent most of my life in the US. And then guess what? No, I'm spending my prime years here and I love it. Being on one of the most beautiful islands in the world. I started 8 years ago, again, primarily as a stay-at-home mom, but of course, wherever I go, I teach. I always say, it's my passion, it's what I do, it's what I love. I started with one student at my kitchen table for Branches of Learning. Yes. Started with one student at my kitchen table 8 years ago. My husband decided to add a garage to the house, and of course, conveniently, any teacher, educator, person knows what happened to that space.
Yes.
And so that space was recreated into what's known now as the BOL Lounge. So all of the photos and information and things that you see of children working and playing, that is the BOL Lounge, which was my old garage, which I remodeled and turned it into a creative learning space to host after-school programming.
Well, that is an exciting journey. I'd like to welcome Denny UH77, and she says she lived in Texas. She's my good buddy. And she says Cyprus is a great school district. Glad you are back in the Caribbean and giving back. Hi, Paula Marcel. Hi, Imara Designs. Hi, XO Rebel Queen, and do like, share so more people can join us and hear what we're about. That really piqued my interest because I think there is such a need for the two core things that you were heavily engaged in. One, teacher education, being a coach and mentor to colleagues, new colleagues in the profession. I was a teacher educator for Tibet, and there really is a huge need for that, definitely. And because teaching is an art, huh? And so it takes some time and practice and feedback to get it right. Also, in the Caribbean, we are really not doing well with the differently abled in terms of, persons with special needs from an educational perspective, like the dyslexia, like the autism, etc. We are not focused on that. We have very few specialists in that area. And I am understanding from my reading that all over the globe, people are saying that these students are being left behind, particularly as we move online. What are your thoughts about that?
I would definitely have to agree, and it's one of the challenges, again, not just here in the Caribbean, but worldwide. Parents and families are faced with, and educators are faced with, attempting to meet the needs of persons with learning differences. Luckily for us, as we were talking prior to, in Anguilla, we are COVID free. So I've had the opportunity still to be able to meet with my students over the past couple of months. And keeping that communication line open with parents. One of the things I would encourage during, most places are still, social distancing and some schools are opening, some schools are not. But in this process for me, what I plan on doing to provide a solution is to equip our families and practice with our students before we would have to go into another shutdown. I found that our parents needed just as much support as our students did and switching and making that change. And so as you shared, in the Caribbean, in the world, children are with special needs and differences are left behind, but even more so during this COVID time.
That's really important because I gave a talk the other day and I was telling the audience that education is not something that is isolated. And the statistics are there that the children who do the best are the children who have that parental support. However, because this new normal and online and this, many parents do not know how to navigate that, right? And so they
Yes.
can't provide oversight, they can't provide support, etc. if they just don't know. And this is a saying I also have all the time. You know, you cannot do what you do not know. It's not possible, right? And so that part about preparing parents, engaging parents, coaching parents is really
Parents, yes.
important. Now, can you talk to me about what makes ball different?
Well, every business has a story, and as you shared, in the Caribbean, children with learning differences particularly have been left behind. When I initially moved in 2012, the foundation of adding value through education, my focus was primarily on meeting the needs of children with learning differences and special needs in terms of services, because I found that there weren't any after-school program services, extended learning opportunities, and persons with specialization that could focus and hone in and support in the development of IEP plans or supporting the current learning goals that students had. And so that is actually where I started with Branches of Learning, focused primarily on serving students with learning differences. I worked and consulted with the ARIA Children's Foundation, a local organization that supports students with significant disabilities, but then also had opportunities through the government of Anguilla to support them in terms of their remedial reading program, which has many students that would be identified with learning differences and struggle. And so what makes us different is we do offer services that are inclusive for students with learning differences, whether it be on the autistic spectrum, again, primarily because the ARIA Children's Foundation focuses on significant learning differences, we focus on students with mild to moderate learning differences. And so that makes us different. I've used my expertise and background in multisensory learning and teaching strategies to be a critical point and difference in the programming that we offer. We offer play-based learning as well. Any program, if you look at any of the photos of the students, we're not working on worksheets. We're not your average typical after-school program. We don't do the typical homework support because we believe that in after-school programming, we take you from intervention to enrichment to innovation in terms of learning. And so we create those different experiences for students, whether it's one-on-one, in small groups. We specialize in working with small groups. So we don't have large classes. I would say our largest class possibly would be 12 students, and usually I've never taken 12 students because as students enroll, and I conference with parents before their enrollment because we are an inclusive setting, I want to know how can I best serve those children. So if I need to cap a class at 6 because of the learning differences and needs within the class, then I do that as well. Yeah.
So you're really offering customized learning paths, and you're really trying to differentiate yourself through that learner differentiation, right?
Yes.
And yes.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. Why do you think that after school programming is important?
Well, I think it's important for many different reasons. One of the main reasons is it develops early in a child's mindset lifelong learning. You know, that idea of extended learning and learning beyond what they traditionally learn in school and the way they would traditionally learn something in school. So it gives them, it stretches their brain to be able to think differently. And that's one of the things that I find, particularly in working with some of our students here, is, you know, okay, we've learned this set one way, but you know what, it's not really working for me. And sometimes they're just so stuck, well, this is how teacher said. I said, you know what, let's try it this way.
Yes. Teacher is the boss.
So, and being the other teacher, the after school teacher, you know, comes with its challenges, but when you expose them to those different ways that they can learn a concept, again, I use a lot of multisensory learning. And so I use programs such as Touch Phonics, When I look at our early readers and phonemic awareness programs, I use Touch Math, another multisensory program. So I use those research-based programs within our after-school program, as well as programs that I develop based on my expertise and background in literacy, numeracy, and so forth.
Okay, so what is the age range that Ball tends to serve? Hello, TP10, thank you. Everybody do like and share and hit like and hearts. If you like what we're saying, make sure you ask questions. All right, this is a new time, right? So what is the age range?
So branches of learning, we serve students early childhood to, which would be second form, or which would be in the U.S. 8th grade. So we serve a wide audience, but we also believe in flexible grouping. So we do multi-age groups as well. So the classes are made up of multi-age grade levels and ages. And that in itself creates a multitude of opportunities for the students to learn from each other. And so those are the age ranges that we serve. We also serve through our community program. We do adult services in terms of literacy, and we do serve our parents through our Bridges of Learning community programming, where we host workshops and interactive sessions to help coach them through supporting their children. I started last year. Actually, I mean, it's been a couple of years, but I think I just named it our BOL Power Hour series.
I watch you. I know.
So branching out to what I like to call edutourism. I mean, we have some amazing local experts and international experts that visit and come to Anguilla. And so I've been able to connect with a lot of them, whether they follow me on social media and they see the work that we're doing and they want to come in and they want to work with parents, students, and or teachers. So we've created that platform and opportunity to help have those things happen as well through BOL.
So what you're really doing is building an ecosystem.
Yes, in essence.
Yeah, yes. You're building a full-fledged ecosystem. I think what is very important about what you said with regard to your differentiation and the nature of after-school programming and its importance is that in the Caribbean, we tend to see after-school as a direct extension of the classroom, where students are just being drilled to complete homework, or they're taught to a test or taught to some standardized exam, which really does not enrich their minds, doesn't grow them, because it's much of the same. And so I would warn parents and guardians to begin looking at their choices for after-school programming based on some of the criteria and values that you are saying that Ball brings to the education ecosystem. Now, what I was always following you. I think I was following you through Ms. Barnes, right?
Yes.
And then I remember your journey to Finland, and I was glued on your lives and your journey like, you know, it was a reality TV show. I was like, when is she going to be on next with an update? Now, I have been fascinated with Finland and the Finnish education ecosystem for years, because of course you would know that they are the benchmark for holistic and effective education, you know, in the world, right? They have an entirely different education model. Some of that comes because of the cultural difference in the way that they view teachers. So I want you to talk to me about your journey in Finland, how you got to Finland, and what you learned about education in terms of best practices in Finland. So hi, Njeri Design, thank you for joining.
Wow, well, you know, the journey to Finland. So again, I shared moving in 2012 to Anguilla. Of course, coming with just my education background, yes, I was working and building my business part-time, but you know, when you come to, in essence, a new country, and you have to learn the business world and the dynamics and so forth. And so I said, you know what, I need a little bit more training in terms of entrepreneurship and how am I going to get this business going and be sustainable in Anguilla. So one of the things that I did was I applied through our Department of Youth and Culture here in Anguilla. They have a program called Get Set. I believe you guys have a similar program for young entrepreneurs. I wouldn't say I was the youngest in the group. I was the oldest. I would say I was the mom of the group because the cutoff was 35. But I joined, and it was a phenomenal experience. We had opportunities to attend so many different international trainings that helped us to grow and develop our business plan and ideas. And one of those opportunities came through the Erasmus Young Entrepreneurs Exchange Program. But prior to that, I also had an opportunity to apply for a regional award. I got the message late and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and apply. Dug my heels in, sleepless nights, got the application completed, was able to pour out my ideas and my vision about this ecosystem that I'm creating. And sure enough, I got a call a few months later and they said, you're a finalist for, you know, Okta Innovation Business Creativity Innovation Award. And I'm like, okay, 2 minutes later, they messaged and said you won. And when I looked at the criteria and the persons and caliber of business ideas and things that were out there, at that moment, to me, it was, you know, you have those things that traject your vision, yes, right? And that was it. It was like, okay, my ideas are not so crazy. This yes, is doable. This is worthwhile. And it pushed me. So after that, Erasmus came along. And again, a lengthy process. I applied. I think we've talked about some other Erasmus programs. Yeah. I applied, and you have the opportunity, in essence, to choose from any EU country, but there are certain businesses that are within. So my application was in, and I was getting feedback, but I knew where I wanted to go. So I'm that kind of person, you know what, it's not popping up. I did some research, contacted and reached out to those at top educational institutions in Finland and convinced them to apply to the Erasmus program so that I could partner with them. And so the Council for Creative Education did that. And I'm just so thankful to Shireen and Hiram and Elena for welcoming me in for those 5 months. And it was just a phenomenal experience. So with the Council for Creative Education, I had an opportunity to not only train and work within schools, but I did finish education tours because people around the world, everyone wants to get to Finland. Yeah. Literally, it was one of my dreams. And so when it came true, I was just amazed. I literally, as you know from my videos and my photos, I took everything in of the experience. And I had opportunities to do finish education tours. So from early childhood to tertiary education, I got to work with the University of Tampere, where I was based. I got to work with the University of Helsinki. So it was just an amazing opportunity to work with teachers, parents, families, and experts across so many different areas. As you said, the culture and attitude about education and teachers is completely different. Yes. You know, my husband was like, are you gonna come back? You know, because it was that utopian experience where I was like, wow, you know, this is absolutely amazing. At the core of everything of this country and its people is education. And you could feel it, you could see it, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. I would think 3 of the best practices that really stood out to me and also aligned with my philosophy dealt with the idea of multidisciplinary learning. We've heard that forever and forever, right? You know, but they actively do it. They actively plan for it. So the active and interconnected workings of all content area.
Right.
They've started on a new trend in terms of phenomenon-based learning, where they're
Mm.
removing subject areas. You know, so to
Ah,
me, you know, multidisciplinary learning, you know, will be here, and then your phenomenon-based learning is like out here. No more
yeah,
subjects. Yes, there's a level of integration, but the lines are blurred.
very blurred.
Yes. Differentiation, of course, that's a key part of what I focus on with BOL, but differentiation through technology,
Mm.
sidestepping your comfort zone in terms of, you know, just providing and creating an IEP maybe to differentiate, and or just pulling small groups, really teachers taking risk and focusing on strength-based learning
Mm.
for students. So in
Mhm.
essence, every child has an IEP because it's all, most of their learning is personal, it's personalized. They really take the time to get to know the students, the family, the community, what are their strengths, and then build on their strengths from there.
Well, which means we have a long way to go here in the Caribbean. But I think that through initiatives and ventures like Ball, and we are doing something called Molding Mogul Minds, where the goal
Yes,
is to grow the pool of innovators, you know, and diversify them with more brown and black children through
yes,
using emerging tech track. And I think that ventures are better poised to deliver these services because we're more flexible, we're more agile. And the truth is, I guess we cannot expect our government to do everything, but there
everything.
is a need. So I hope to make it to Finland to study their education system. I do, if we ever get to travel again.
Again,
Right.
we
Now,
will, we will. I'm
I,
hopeful.
I hope so. Now, you spoke about the integration of tech. Could you talk to us a little bit more about how they view tech? How do they infuse tech in instructional design and instruction in Finland from what you had witnessed?
Wow, they so you know, you would envision that, oh, every classroom has laptops and every student has a piece of technology or device with them. Not necessarily the case, but what they do have is high quality pieces of equipment. Two particular pieces of tech that I want to talk about. One, I'm prayerfully hoping to get it here to Anguilla. The first one is the Yeti tablet. So this is a giant Android tablet that makes it easier, more accessible for students, persons with learning differences, physical disabilities as well, to be able to access learning opportunities. So it's in essence a touch screen that would allow students to have more interactive opportunities. Okay, so they would be able to collaborate more innovatively. It's also, it's not a tablet that just goes on the screen, it turns into a tabletop. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can physically go to sit at the table with the students. Students can stand around it and use it. It also comes personalized. So when you purchase this particular tablet based on the demographics and the information that you sent, they can personalize it with those particular apps. As a community center, I think this tool is going to be life-changing for our community. It would not only be for students here at Bowl, it would be for schools to come and visit and use and engage with and interact with. So I'm using those types of tools. Just, I mean, I was just amazed and blown away. I was really, really amazed and blown away. But it's just phenomenal. It's personalized. It allows a differentiation. It's accessible for children with learning differences, adults. It's been used also in senior citizens' homes. So across the board, this is a community, I feel, a community tool that would support the neurorehabilitation of many different persons. So that was one piece of tech in terms of education that really blew my mind. I literally took a day to travel. I think I did a video shot and sent some videos of me actually interacting with it. And I took a day trip to go out to the actual company and spent the day working with it, using it, doing a training on it. And so it was absolutely phenomenal. Another piece of technology, which we haven't talked, I have a background in ESL as well, and languages is critical. In Finland, students are speaking 3 to 4 languages, some 5 languages, you know, and this is in primary school. So languages are very important. I think that's definitely an area, and also with our demographics, particularly changing here in Anguilla, and I'm sure in St. Kitts as well, that, you know, ESL, being bilingual, trilingual is the way our children need to go. And one of the text pieces that they use is Elias. He is a robot. He's a language speaking robot. He's the first language app, humanoid robot that includes ready-made apps and courses designed to help teach children learn different languages. Of course, being an English speaker and working with students using the Finnish language or even German, I use the app with the students, the robot with the students to teach English. And so it sets up.
So exciting.
So Elias, and he has a little personality. It has different versions, and they program them and personalize them for the classrooms that they're going to be in. And so there are 5 different language exercises in essence that happen. There's a warm-up and exercise. There's the repeat and remember. There are then speech exercises, and then there are playful quizzes that he engages them with. So those are two of my top that I fell in love with that I think would be amazing tools for us to have here in the region for students to have those opportunities.
Well, this is exciting because, you know, I love tech. I love tech. You know, tech is one of my disciplines. Now, you know, that portion where you're talking about the importance of acquiring other languages, it's really important, and we are not putting any emphasis on that. Now, I was an ESL teacher. I'm ESL certified, and I was an ESL teacher for Chinese students right here from my living room. And these children were, some of them as young as 4 years old, and their language skills are phenomenal, right? And I thought, you know, this being bilingual and acquiring new languages, China has realized, particularly English, that it is a developmental tool, and it is a tool for them to continue to grow their GDP and their superpower status. And you know, we are not embracing the idea of acquiring new languages, even though, as you say, our schools are becoming, our societies are becoming much more diverse, particularly in St. Kitts. If you go for a walk, we have a golf course that, you know, it's not in use now because of COVID, and you walk there, and you can see people from every part of the world and hear people speaking many different languages as you go about your afternoon walk. So the world is changing, has changed. Our societies have changed, and we're not realizing that to be competitive, that there are some skills, hard, soft language skills that we really need to begin to pour into our children, and children learn easily. So
yes, they do.
Right? And then with the tech, the type of engagement and excitement, it would make that ESL learning process go even more smoothly
and faster.
Yes.
And so that is one of the things, you know, outside of, yes, we're doing differentiation, we're differentiating the programming that we're doing. I'm so excited. Again, we're launching and opening the BOL Center next Saturday. And we're excited to announce that we will have Ms. Jan Challenger of Discovery Spanish for All. She will be joining us to host some classes for Spanish. So we're very excited to add that component now to BOL. So we're trying to provide those avenues for students to have access to language programs.
BOL is rocking. I want to enroll myself. I'm telling you, it's so exciting. And you know, that is what education should be like. Education should excite. Education should motivate. Education should do those things, because without those things, it's difficult to scaffold learning, right? When people are not engaged. Now, I know that we're talking about tech. What do you feel is the appetite for tech in education in your market?
I believe that there is a strong appetite for it, but like many places, the challenges we face in terms of having access to the tech that we need. We have amazing and great local experts. We have Tahira Banks and the Thoughtful Agency that do a lot of tech things, and but they're stretched thin. So when it comes to programming, unfortunately, sometimes there's not the time. And so of course, I'm not an expert in every area. And one of the goals of BOL is to bring the experts here and have parents and families have access to. So it's the access, a level of the expertise. We do have local expertise, but of course they are stretched thin because they're amazing at what they do. So I would say that we do have a strong appetite. Our children want it and they need it. I know recently through our Department of Youth and Culture, they did host an IT camp where students were able to do HTML coding and different things, develop web pages and so forth. But I think we're struggling to take it beyond that. So courses and things that are long-term classes where students can really grow in that particular area, especially from the primary age. One of the things that we've done here at BOL, in 2018, we launched our Creative Innovative Camps for Kids. And it is a STEAM education focused program that we host. Primarily, we have Santa and STEAM, which is our Christmas program. We have a crafters camp in the spring, and then we have our camps in the summer that are STEAM based. This was the first summer we haven't had one, of course, with the pandemic and Corona, so we didn't have it this year. But in terms of STEAM education, we designate each day to focus on a particular area, but we also have what we call our E+. Our E+, of course, the engineering we know focus on engineering and building and so forth, but also we focus on the environment. We've partnered with our local national trust to do some environmentally friendly projects or have them come in and work with the students for that day, whether we do a local cleanup and different activities as such. And then, of course, delving into entrepreneurship, why not have an E for entrepreneurship? And so we, of course, we had our very first Kidpreneur camp last summer, and it was, again, the beginning stages, ideation. We had local persons come in and speak about media, creating your business plan. They did their logos and, getting things off the ground, but looking at how we can have facilitators and persons that would allow me to make those programs longer. I think we have a human resource is a challenge. Is a challenge here many times, but that's what we do in terms of STEAM and STEM at BOL. And again, I think those early experiences are really key for students. And again, that programming focuses on early childhood to grade 6 students.
Well, now is the time of online collaboration, and entrepreneurship is my love, and so we can always collaborate. I love to see children beginning to understand that they can create and not just consume, because this is our biggest problem for people, right? Now, with all of this online tech, I've been having a lot of discussions, and there's been a lot in the literature about screen time and its effect on or impact on learners, especially young learners. So, what are your thoughts on balancing this screen time, especially now during COVID?
Well, especially now during COVID, the balancing act is even harder. I would say it's so critical for parents, educators, and students. I find myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on a screen all day some days. And I'm just like, this is not healthy. This is not good. So even though many times we don't follow our own advice, because usually we're the one that's providing the service, it is so critical to plan for it, to help parents and families to create learning opportunities that will activate both their mind and their body. So teaching and helping parents to create schedules that get children outside. So if you're a teacher and you are putting together your lesson plan, I prefer an asynchronous model where, you develop a lesson plan that supports and guides parents through, with a combination of interactive things that they can do online, independently, away from the school, from the screen, sorry. And so I think that is the critical part, but also helping persons in our community also understand what blended learning is. I said COVID, actually, we talked about, oh wow, opening a center in the middle of a pandemic, how is that going to work? But if you've looked at the information about BOL, the vision behind the hub and the center that we have has always been about hybrid learning and blended learning and flexible learning. And so COVID has actually been an asset for me, because now the general public and persons, in essence, have been forced to learn and figure out what is this blended learning, but now letting them know exactly what it truly should be. It's not sitting and having your child sit in front of a screen for 6 hours like a traditional school day. That's not what it means. So understanding that, it's not healthy for the teacher, it's not healthy for the child. Helping parents understand how to use the technology. We may WhatsApp, we may, use Facebook, all these different things, but how can we use them to learn, not just to socialize, but how are we using the tools to learn? Okay, and how do you access all those resources? I was literally on an educator high with all the free things that were going on. I could not even, I was everywhere. So I can only imagine parents when so many things are being thrown at them. I was like, you know what, Njeri, I'm just going to curate these resources, start categorizing them and seeing how do they fit the needs in terms of my parents, because it became an overshare, just like we are in social media, and we're just over inundated with so many things. It was just too much. And so now what I've done is I find myself, okay, I'm backtracking and I'm slowing it down for my parents. I'm making it be a more natural process, where each of my classes now have an online component. Whereas before, because the culture has always been, we want the face-to-face, we need the face-to-face. But when we switched to online, yes, I lost a few students because it was challenging, again, not having the support. Parents may not be as tech savvy, and not having that pre-training time, it made it challenging. But now that we've experienced it, I know, okay, I need to do some more training with parents, because they're not going to only be doing it at BOL. They're also going to be doing it in everywhere. School. So whether it's Schoology, whether it's Google Classroom, it doesn't matter what the platform is. We want our parents, our students, to be prepared in order to be able to access learning. So this is the way. This is the way we're going. This is our new norm, which is exciting for me because it was part of my vision. So this is my new norm. I don't have as much tech background, and was blushing when you said that I was your educator crush, because I've been following you for so long, and then I found out that we both went to the same school. I was like, wow, this is just amazing. The world is so small. Yes. And but yeah, blended learning, hybrid learning. I'm sure another name's going to come for it, but this is where we're going.
Well, TP10 says yes to blended learning, and this is what I have been trying to have conversations with public school educators in informal settings to explain to them that online learning, or like online, is a tool, right? But you have to marry that with other things, especially the smaller the children are, the younger they are. Now, a lot of people may not know, but my children had been virtually schooled since the ages of 12 and I think 9, 12 and 10 respectively, right? Right here in St. Kitts, I enrolled them in International Connections Academy that has been now bought by Pearson. And
okay.
Right. So I have the experience, not just as an educator, but as a parent, to see how this screen time, concept works. And what you find with that institution is that the younger the children are, the more manipulatives they receive in the mail. And so they have huge kits of, science equipment, of physical books, of they have community projects, so they have to actually go out into the same community and solve problems. And so what I'm trying to explain is that online learning, or learning in the new normal, is not just showing up online, right? And when you do the blended component, it helps to reduce inequity because of access. And so students can be engaged in doing projects offline and simply take a picture of their project and write up a little explanation on their method and upload that to a little portal. So, along with some asynchronous and some printables, etc. So these are the things that we really have to begin considering, especially based on our issues of technology access and socioeconomic divide. So that's my little 2 cents.
No, I completely agree. And again, the access to those manipulatives.
Oops.
We focus on multisensory learning, so I make sure that students have access to those things, even during our when we were closed, or we were still closed, but in terms of, we had our 14-day quarantine, I had students that needed books. I created book buckets. I would, knowing the student, the types of books and things that they liked, I communicated through, WhatsApp or however with parents. Is there something that you need to work on, something for regular school? And I would just put those things in a bucket, put them out by the doorway, and they would come and collect it. So, but access to those manipulatives, and yes, keeping it hands-on with the blending learning is key.
Yeah, it is really key to balancing that screen time and, making sure we do not, compress our brains into online mush. It's really important, It is. We're not thinking about that. Now, what are your thoughts on how online learning, and especially in this new normal, how does that impact the socio-emotional part of the education process and learner affect, particularly with the younger students that you engage with?
Well, I'll ask you this. How is it affecting you as an adult? Yes, exactly. So, it significantly impacts students. I mean, the level of stress that some students are undergoing, and we believe that children don't know, for some reason, as adults, and we know better, they understand. They feel the energy and vibes. Mom and dad have lost their jobs. They notice the differences in the things that are happening around the house. They notice the changes in their community. They may experience a lot of anxiety to new ways of learning, blended learning. It's just like, woo, this is not for me, and there are just some learning formats that are not online learning may not be appropriate for some students. It's just not a good fit.
Yeah.
And so, all of those different things compounded, from financial loss to maybe they're not getting enough in nutrition, all of those things affect the social emotional aspect of students. So some of the things, and I try to always put out there ideas on how parents can support students in being more self-aware. So using mindfulness strategies, breathing. I had a parent who was like, my daughter came home and she's taking deep breaths, and I was like, yes, we've done that. I've had guest speakers come in and do meditation and talk about mindfulness and what that is, and being quiet and being still. So helping students to be aware when they're stressed, when they're feeling anxious, self-management, those executive functioning skills. In order to do online learning, even when I think back when I, part of my second degree at Duquesne, part of it was online, and that was my first time. Part of it was online. I was like, whoa, this is intense. To me, the intensity level of self-directed learning and ownership for what you needed to do, all those different tasks, students are just learning. I mean, they're children. This is challenging, and we have to help them with those executive functioning skills. So teaching them to organize themselves, planning, self-regulation skills. Is this too much? When do I stop? Am I burnt out? So many different things for them. So helping parents to be able to support them in management. Okay, this is what a good balanced schedule would look like for the day, and offering those suggestions. Social awareness. Again, you mentioned depression. There were so many unfortunate, sad cases where there were some children that just could not cope and became, suicidal, which is scary. Which is very, very scary, because we are naturally social beings. Our children are especially
young children.
Young children are social beings, and that interaction is so key to their daily lives. There were some, missing their best friend. They can't see them. They, so many different things. Their teacher, the routine. Especially our children with special needs, a lot of my students, on the spectrum, it was that routine. Okay, we're not getting up. I'm not seeing teacher today. There were so many things that disrupted the entire schedule. And again, flexibility, with working with some children with autism, it doesn't work for them. They need that routine. They need their person. To support and guide and scaffold through the day. And then, of course, teaching them to, again, have some responsible decision making in essence. Again, that goes back to the executive functioning skills, self-management, and helping the parents make some of those decisions too. What is best for us? I also work with the Omololu International School, an IB school here, and I have a third grade class. And so because we were already online, I use Google Classroom as a platform of choice for this particular group. I found it easy. This is the way we've communicated all the time. We left on a Friday, and Monday we were, yes, we're going to have our class meeting. We're going to have our OIS time. And there were some that may have had connectivity issues, but that level of normal and being able to see their faces and do those things with having some routines made it much easier for them. But it impacts them. And again, supporting the parents, creating a schedule that works best for everyone, knowing that this morning we're having our class meeting. My teacher is going to send me these lists of opportunities and activities to work on. I can have access. I stayed online between 9 and 12 so that they chose when they were going to do their activities. And if they wanted to chime in and say, teacher's here, hi, I have a question, they raise their hand, I'm there. And because I have 2 kids at home too that were doing the same thing. So that asynchronous schedule really, really worked for a lot of my families. And I think that is definitely beneficial. But the social, emotional impact, definitely significant for our younger students.
Yeah, so we'll have to continue to work on that and begin embedding opportunities for social engagement in new and innovative ways. It doesn't always have to be like in a chat room. Maybe we can revive the art of the pen pal. And
Yes.
right, we can revive the art of the pen pal. It's a learning tool, right? That's a learning vehicle.
Yes.
We can have the video pen pal. We can do lots of things to kind of get that engagement going. So we are wrapping. And so my final question is a big question. I like big questions, right? So what is your greatest desire for education in the Caribbean context? And what do you think your role will be in that?
Wow, that is a really big question. Huge. And I would have to say my greatest desire for education in the Caribbean context, wow. Even though I've thought about it, but what I come back to is honestly the mission of Branches of Learning, which is to add value through education, personalizing student education, teacher professional development, parent education, and education advocacy, because I believe that we all must be advocates for our children, and being able to meet those needs through differentiated specialized instruction and research-based best practice. So when I think about my role, I think about the components of BOL. There are so many sectors to Branches of Learning in terms of, there's Branches of Learning where we do educational consulting, private service, private tutoring, coaching, teacher training, all of those wonderful things. And then there's Big on Learning, the nonprofit sector, where we are creating environments that help to develop children, teachers, and parents to be effective communicators, competent problem solvers, self-directed learners, responsible citizens, and quality producers in this ever-changing world of education, and just the world period. I mean, the pandemic is a prime example, you know, of why we need to be so much more prepared, why we need to be so much more flexible and fluid. Literally flexible and fluid is the new future of education.
Yes.
We are going to have to be flexible and fluid in using the best practices. You know, there's going to be crossover with blended learning. There's just so many doors that are opening. And I just pray that in the Caribbean that we be open to it. I know that we like to sometimes be comfortable in what we do, and this is how we do it, but there's no more comfort. We have to have a breakthrough, and in order to catapult ourselves in the future to support our communities. And so that, yes, flexible, fluid, new times in education, be open, be innovative, of course, and create those opportunities.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I always like interacting with you, even though it was from a distance most times, because I always learn so much, right, about education and about new ways of engaging in learning. And so I believe that your repository of new age education is a huge competitive advantage. So that, to me, as the entrepreneur coach, is your biggest competitive advantage, the love for lifelong learning and, you know, imbuing new ways of learning. So thank you for joining me. For those of you who were not on the live, we're going to be posting this on IGTV. It will be on Coaching by Tamara YouTube. It will be on Facebook. And of course, I'll give Njeri a copy so she will have everything on her platform as well. So thank you, Njeri. I'll meet you back on Zoom.